So, but I think it comes down to what can I offer the world, and how does that manifest itself? Do I want to try
Yeah.
to manifest itself, in a way that sort of feels simpler, maybe feels closer to the metal or something,
Yeah.
or do I want to put a lot of stuff around it?
You always have a great way of putting things, man. Like closer to the metal, simpler. So
Yeah.
normally when I do these, I'll go three, two, one. Welcome to OnSolos. Today I'm with Adam Zais. I've known Adam for a long time, but Adam's not necessarily a solo right now. I don't think you're even helping solos, but you helped me as a solo when you were a solo, and you put it best in your in your bio. It's like been there, done that. Whatever Joe
Yeah.
wants to talk about, I'm like, all right, I get the vibe. He just wants to come on, shoot the shit with as we do. But like this time, we just do it with maybe a little bit more background. Like, who is Adam for those that don't know who Adam is,
Okay.
without
First,
labeling it?
yeah. Well, Joe Jerome, I've always liked talking to you from
Thanks, man.
the first time we ever
Same.
talked to now this is the last one. So thank you for having me, and I hope we can add value to people's lives out there. Yeah. So what I've done in my life, I've gravitated towards small companies. I've learned the hard way that I'm not great at a big company. It's hard for me to put it in any other way, that I'm better at smaller companies. And what that means, I guess, means I like to do stuff rather than I like to do stuff that matters. And big companies tend to have a lot of stuff that doesn't matter that you got to do, which is sort of political, I think is the best way
Yeah.
to say it.
Jump
And I'm
in.
just not very good at it.
Can I unpack that really quick?
Yeah.
You say you're not good at it because you're one of the most likable people I know, but you said,
Yeah.
you have nice things to say about me too, but maybe given the right environment, we can get frustrated, or who knows what it is. But when you, or maybe likable doesn't have to do with political, right? Political could just get exhausting. And what is it about political that can be a turn off for you?
So
Like,
the
that's interesting.
Yeah, I used to describe it to people. I say there's the job that you're doing at a big company, and then there's the shadow job, which is all about keeping your job and
Yeah.
or advancing your career beyond just the outcomes of what it is that you're actually tasked to do.
Mm.
So in my case, I'll give you, I'll even name the names. So I went to well, maybe I won't name names, but so in 1989, I decide, hey, I'm going to answer this ad in the Boston Globe for a. This is going to test your listeners' ability to Google stuff, but a Unix computer company, Unix systems company,
Yeah.
out on the
That's
West Coast.
everything's still running on that one way or another. So,
Right, yeah,
you
right,
know,
yeah. How about those 360, 370 machines running COBOL code bases?
thank God we have AI so something could discern what the code is on
Right.
those now, right?
Well, right. I mean, I was at a company that created the first sort of development tool that was aimed at building client server kind of applications on COBOL code bases and databases. Really, it's a
Wow.
thing called PowerSoft. So, and the product was Power Builder. So, you know, I go way back, man. It's
I go back pretty far too with I got right into tech early in my career. And as a kid, I was a young kid with a Commodore 64. I have to Google that too.
yeah,
You'd write a program, and the moment you shut it off, it was gone, unless you had a tape recorder that stored it. And unless you were
wow,
lucky enough to have a floppy disk, which I called a hard drive at the time, I was able to get one. But
nice,
it
yeah.
was like one of those war game setups, right? But I had experience before I was able to use a program like Microsoft Access. I would have to, as a data analyst
Hmm.
in the 90s, I would have to go and write up a script. It was almost like SQL, but it was a script of what I wanted from the developers. and the developers
Sure.
would be in the back, and they'd write their COBOL and they'd output it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can access this system off of a I hope this doesn't bore everyone because it's kind of interesting. Off of a tandem system, which was a fault-proof
Oh,
system
sure.
that was the
Absolutely.
size of a room. It looked like something off of Star
Right.
Trek, off the deck. It was
All right.
crazy with lights
Well,
and
so
everything.
so to put this into context, so I
Yes.
was I was at the company that was called PowerSoft, building
Yeah.
this thing called Power Builder, and it was fantastically successful for the time. And I got enamored with the idea of going to the West Coast. I'd been brought up in New York, and I'm now living in Boston, so I had not really experienced living elsewhere. My wife and I were childless at that point, and I thought it was a great idea. Actually, no, my daughter had just been born. That's what it was. So, um, and this company was really very attractive to me because of what it was trying to do, and the details aren't interesting. But I'm trying to answer the question about. But it was a really big company. I think when I got there,
Yeah.
I was like employee 1,200 or something, and then when the inevitable reduction in force or RIF
Yep.
came 2 years later, there were 4,000 people, and they just jettisoned, I don't know, 1,500 of us in one day.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh
at that
man.
time, this was in Portland, Oregon. And so now I've just given it away because I've said Unix Computer Company in Portland,
Yeah.
Oregon, and
Somebody's
the
gonna be out
time
there putting the
and
pieces
the time
together.
frame. But pardon me, the I really enjoyed doing the work at the company. But what I didn't understand was how important it was to be very careful about how you represented yourself beyond the job in
Mm.
cultivating, nurturing relationships that I would, I since it's a family show, there's an awful lot of work that has to go into trying to make it such that people will say, well, okay, well, I'm going to create the list of who to let go, that I'm not on it. And it's a
You could say
group with
bullshit. No, I'm just
okay,
kidding.
okay.
No, I'm
Well, there
just
there is
teasing.
there
But
is a lot of stuff.
yeah, stuff. No, I'm just teasing. I'd be the one to say it.
Yeah.
But
It's a lot of BS that you have to do. That, I mean, my group was responsible for probably leveraging $50 million worth of computers in the course of time
wow.
I was there. And that, but that's not good enough. You have
Right.
to you
That's
have to
crazy.
be you have to be uh, in the right group, saying the right things, wearing the right
Yeah.
clothes. I mean, literally. And that's the stuff that just never until the riff happened, I didn't realize how important that was. And that if I look at the people that got laid off the same time I did and the people who stayed, the only difference, it wasn't in output or outcomes that they were able to uh, either actually produce themselves or leverage. It's because they weren't in the right crowd. It's almost like cliquish.
Yeah.
So that's to me, there's a lot more of that. I'm not at all saying, because people are going to call bullshit on us, to say that
Correct.
politics doesn't exist at small companies. Of course it does. It's startup and smaller companies just have a way of, and I think building the right typical, or they have the opportunity to build the right culture that can, I think, minimize how that manifests itself. Whereas bigger
Right.
companies, it's almost like they're celebrating that stuff in a way
Right.
in a way that smaller companies don't
Hierarchy
don't
and
don't have time for.
I think I'm just of the mind that a lot of people shouldn't be working for people or you shouldn't, it's not always a great thing to have a boss or be a boss unless you're
Yeah.
working for a bigger company like it's
But
already
working
established.
working for people that aren't worth working for or with is certainly the problem. I mean, I hear you. I've had terrible environments in which to work, including the people I reported to. It's unbelievably soul sucking to be in those situations. However, there are, as I've had, luckily I think, as many or maybe more experience of working for great people. So, and those are the things that make you feel empowered and excited to come into work and enthused about what you're doing and things like that. So I hope that everybody has those experiences.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
there are those opportunities. I think some people I know too, like have their gig or their solo thing, and they have a job too. They're able to do both.
Yep.
Maybe the solo thing just kind of takes a backseat to the main thing, right? But they
Hmm.
still spend a good amount of their time doing it. And sometimes the employers are able to allow them to juggle both. If you're highly productive, you might not need the full 40. You're working from home, it might be objective. Like here, by objective, you get paid. So, people can fall into all different ranges, but being a solo is tough. Like it's a tough slug.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
really hard and they don't have any support. And I think part of this too is like there are a lot of like if you think of an agency, it really is just a bunch of people who should otherwise be contracted, right. I was having this conversation the other day with a guy named Brian Logan Reed, and if he goes into a company, he's only there not long, gets bored, does his thing, gets out. um and we were talking because it's interesting. I had a fella over my house who does trade work, heating and air conditioning. He's a friend of mine. And he was telling me about his life and story being a solo doing that work compared to working at big companies. And, he's an expert guy. And honestly, the conversations he was having with me about his life as a solo could have been his life as a solo SEO, right? Or a solo
Yeah.
web guy.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was talking to BL. I'm like, man, what we do is kind of like trades work. There should probably be just a GC. Shouldn't be this agency. It's a silly model, right? Like because it's digital, why is it not a trade? And it's kind of silly. It's very specialized. It has peaks and valleys, and you work with other people, and it's not like there's that much overlap.
Well, I mean, I said that's a great observation, especially if you're you're looking through the lens of, or not through the lens, but if you're looking specifically at the world of agencies, the I mean, think about, I don't know, the heyday of Madison Avenue, ad agencies, Mad Men type era. Great show, by the way, one of my favorite shows.
Mm-hmm.
It was this, I think, concept that bigness has to do with you have every possible skill set captured on the bench waiting to be used, or whether you use them or not in any particular campaign for any particular client, but you have them. And that means, well, if you have all that, and I think I don't know whether this has been part of your thinking in your journey, is that, wait a minute. I mean, if I need it, I'll go get it, rather
Mm-hmm.
than build a company that has to feed those mouths, those pay those mortgages, help all those things. Then you're, the ethos as the leader or the mindset is different than when you're a solo. You
Mm-hmm.
still have some of the same challenges, because now it's all right. How do I sell something, and then how that dynamic or the tension, if you will, between I got to create an opportunity, sell it, and then I have to deliver on the things that I'm doing. And so that's a natural tension in the solo world. I mean, I experienced that when I hung out the shingle, so to speak, as a consultant. And I heard about it when I launched the agency plan at Wistia. That was a big part of the conversation I had with the people that were coming on board to use the agency, plan or the product. And it is a challenge to navigate that. So, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's being a solo versus trying to become a bigger company, is it's just sort of different. When you talk about solos, for example, at big companies, everyone's job is so much more small. It's narrowly defined. Whereas, when you're doing something yourself, you're doing everything. You're doing strategy, you're doing tactic, you're selling, you're supporting, you're literally doing everything. Um, and smaller companies are somewhere sort of in between. But
Yep.
it all comes down to what makes you feel that it's worth doing every day. because every day you get up is another day on the planet. Not to get too maudlin, but you only have so many
You have
days.
to look at it that way, though.
You
That's
have
when
to
the
you
good
only
stuff
have so
happens
many.
sometimes,
Right,
when you're really
right.
considering that stuff, you kind of wake up the next day a lot more appreciative and seeing things you might not have seen and taken for granted.
Yeah, I always like I like that feeling of you're in an environment where nothing's taken for granted.
Right.
That you're either defining it new that day, or it's still fresh. And so that's why I've gravitated towards startup companies. And when I got to a point where the last company that I'd started with other people, I'm not trying to say that I'm the only one, but I'd achieved the things that I had wanted to, that the four of us set out to achieve. And I'm still involved in that company as a one of the in terms of ownership, but I'm not there day to day. And it enabled me to go out and try some of those things, doing some um, everything from doing mentoring and coaching to actually taking gigs that were by design have like a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, man.
And
Like,
it was like I'm just going to be here for 14 months, and I'm going to teach
yeah.
these people how to run a sales force, and how to it can what, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
you've
then
done that independently of what the company structure is. Like when I think of you, I think of like a free spirit, a solo, like in the context we've known each other, no matter where you're at, whether it is solo or whether it's small business, startup, or big business, you're just always at them. You're always that guy doing your thing, coming
yeah,
in. And that's a hard
thanks,
thing to
Joe.
do, I
I
think, for
appreciate that.
people. But
Well, it helps to have had some mileage, frankly,
yeah.
under in your career, because I think when folks are younger, just starting out their career, they're still building that sense of what is it, because it's always about you more than the careers. I mean, the degrees you have or the skill. It's really it's you. I gravitated towards sales and marketing, um, and if someone buys from me, it's usually because of me.
You as
Product
the person, like you as
yeah,
Adam,
that's
and
what I mean.
not,
It's
yeah.
right. It's not the price. It's not the product features. Those things are facts, if you will, that you're dealing with. But so when you're always dealing with competitors whose products probably do the same thing, or services do the
Mm.
same thing, or it's enough that the buyer sort of says, well, they're all alike, and they're all kind of priced alike. So how do they make decisions? Well, it's based on their making a decision to buy from you because they trust you and they're rooting for you. They want you to succeed. Actually, that's the kind of relationship that you have to build in order to get people to make decisions. It's always about you being the difference maker. So when I've gone out to be a solo, I've said, well, I mean, I am who I am, and I have my experiences, I have my points of view, I have my mindsets, I have my philosophies. All those things are true. Yes, I have my opinions. I'm from New York. We're full of opinions.
I'm Jersey
So,
guy.
yeah, actually, same thing, frankly, just
Yeah,
on the other side of the river. A
me
lot
too.
of opinions floating around.
That's it.
So someone decides to hire me, or, contract with me, it's because of me, right? So when someone comes to Joe to work with them on whatever it might be, let's pretend it's all about building brand, right?
Yeah, right. Building brand
So when they
and
come
solving things.
well, and great point. We'll get to that. But when they come to you to talk about, well, remember when you and I were talking a while back, it was all about the templates for HubSpot,
Yeah.
right? So how many other template makers were out there in the world?
Oh,
There were
so
plenty of
many.
them, right? So they're going to choose to do business with Brand Builder and Joe Jerome because of Joe. And that
Yeah.
it's your capabilities to build templates, or someone else has the same capability. So it's all about the how do you make them feel about the decision that they're going to make. And that's, I don't care whether you're really in sales or not. That's what it's all about. It's
I
all
like
about
this.
it's all about human relationships.
I got to
Truly.
put one point in there though about you and what you're saying, because I think I've seen people take that type of advice who are missing one part of it. And when you were talking about the politics in a company, that's a social activity. And then you're
Hmm.
saying they're going to hire you for you, which is also a social framework. I think the thing that's different, especially about you and what I learned from you working closely with you, and it was always fun. It was always fun working with you, but we were
Thanks.
always doing work, but it was always just like hanging out, doing something fun, and it was really cool to make it work. But you're authentic, and that authenticity is like key when it means they're hiring you for you. You got to be your true self. You got to just cut out the BS and kind of be open hearted and nice. And there you root for the person. You, as Adam, you rooted for me when we worked together. So it wasn't, you know,
Yeah,
being about you,
absolutely.
but you rooted for me to be successful, and we worked together to be successful. And I think that's just such a key.
And I think that mindset is really important for your, the community that you're trying to build. So think about it when you don't have anyone else but you. I mean, there's nothing to hide. There's nowhere to hide. It
Yeah.
it's This is who I am, and it has to be. You're absolutely right. It's of course it costs you nothing to be likable. Truly, in the world, it's if doing business it is predicated. I believe this absolutely positively is predicated on words like authenticity and trust and credibility. I was just listening to a podcast, another podcast,
Yeah.
on my way home to talk to you. This is so true. Your reputation gets there before you do these days. I mean, just Google Joe Jerome. You're going to get a bunch of stuff, LinkedIn, things you've written, things you've spoken about, all the, and people are going to see, or a little bit, they're going to experience you before they actually get a chance to experience you. So that is, if you create, if you put effort into creating that over time, it'll be, I think, quite visible as to who you are at that surface, the part of the iceberg that's above the waves, right?
Yeah, that first thing
And
people see is
right, and
a smile versus a frown or whatever it might
right,
be.
and so the being likable is is great. It doesn't cost you anything. Doing all those other things, being trustworthy, being, you know
Yeah,
having all those words that you have positive vibe to them, integrity, all those things. Absolutely, you got to have that. That's got to be in your wheelhouse as a solo. And being likable, of course, always helps.
I like the word positive vibe, like right. So you're not the type of person who's just nice, right? Like it's you give off the good vibe, right? It's a positive vibe, but like you'll shoot straight and you'll say, hey, but it's not in a way that demoralizes and trashes someone and just makes them go, oh, I don't need to hear this. But you say, did you consider this or did you
Yeah,
consider
I mean,
that? And there's a way of delivering the bad news or the interest or the blind spots to people that, you know, different strokes for different folks, different things work, different times you need to hear different messages. But with you, there's so many atomisms that I have in my
thank you.
head
You,
for over the
you,
years from things from
you're
just
very, very,
interacting.
very kind. I'm honored that you remember all those things, and that
Oh yeah.
I'm very gratified that it is that the things that we've done together have been valuable for you. Really.
Totally. Totally. One of the biggest things we do is talking about one to brand. When you talked about going to the heart to get to the mind, right? Like those things stick, and those are things I repeat often. And I distinctly remember those were things you've said, and you also allowed me to have the courage to go out and do things differently often. And you spoke about those things a lot. And I'll tell you one thing, and I don't know people who already know this about you, but you're Mr. Video. I mean, I have a ring light right next to me here that
Nice.
before people,
Okay.
everyone had ring lights.
Right.
You're one of the most innovative guys I know.
And
Before everyone
I gave
had
my
ring
ring
lights,
light to my son. I apologize.
you
I'm
you introduced me to all sorts of cats out there who knew all sorts of things cutting edge on video.
yeah,
In fact, I used Zoom probably before almost anyone. And before the pandemic, my post writing up about Zoom, it was so underused at the time. My post was
yeah,
page one on Google for it. And that was from
yeah,
working with you. So you had taught me how to work with video and emails. I never saw a video in an email where you
yeah.
press play. I mean, that's everywhere now. You were the first one to show that to me. And, you know, I'm an early adopter of a lot of tech. So when I say
You
you're
are. Well,
show, like
you're the
I don't think
tinkerer.
anyone else was seeing it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
actually delivered that to me. You're a tinkerer. How dare you? You're like, no, it's a good thing.
it's a good
And then,
thing, man.
yeah,
Yeah. You have what I call a very high figure it out factor. I'm going to figure it out.
that could be a
Regardless of what it is.
liability. Yeah, you kind of get off focus, but it's
Well, I
fun
mean,
too.
we
But you,
all of us who have ADD,
yeah,
go can get hyper focused on something and go down
yeah,
rat holes, and
yeah,
just as easily as we can be highly distractible. So,
yeah,
and I don't want to put label right, because that's sort of a very broad human experience.
sure is.
Even people with or without, forget about ADD. There are times when you overfocus on things, and the times when you're, kind of
And
distracted.
if you actually label it, what I found is the world's not going to accommodate me. I have to operate in a world where there is focus. So you have to come up with strategies that are unique to you to focus. And that's why I've been real grateful and happy to be able to do this OnSolos thing, because it's like one thing over and over. And when you have that one thing, you have the opportunity to be innovative, like even with the templates, right? Yeah, like one simple thing, but you could iterate off of that. So sometimes go in broad, figure out what it is, and then take that thing and kind of just iterate and make it more powerful. You any experiences like that to share?
I was going to, okay, I'm going to have one half of my brain think about that. But
Sure.
here's what I wanted to say. I think for the folks that are either doing this and want to continue to want to feel like, hey, this is the right choice for them, or for the folks that are considering, how do I do sort of this solo thing? I would say this. I firmly believe this, is that everybody has something about them that they can figure out what it is that is valuable to other people and how they can help them. Because it's human beings are social animals. You even mentioned this earlier. That feeling of help, the good feeling that comes from helping someone, is
Hmm.
universally human. We like to do that, and everybody has the ability, in my view, to do that. And it's never about, am I smart enough, or do I have enough experience? It's, do I have the confidence, the almost bravery, the courage to say, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this and try to distill what it is that I feel that I've learned from others. In my case, for example, it's all about sales and marketing stuff. So I mean, I've learned from others. It's not like, yes, I believe that I have original thought. Of course, we all do, but especially in the world we live in now, it's so much of the information that we take in is just, well, it's just that, it's so much, so that many of the things that we think of, in the middle of the night as a flash of brilliance, are derivative of other things that we've heard. And so it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So back to my point, which is, there is, I believe, in every person, the ability to be a solopreneur. It's never, in my view, about not having the ability. It's always, the things that hold people back are having the willingness to say, I'm going to try this, fail, get up and do it again. And that that's a bravery, that's a resiliency, that's a mindset that says I can do this versus I can't. And I think that's true of growing up. I think that's true of athletics. I think it's true of business. I think it's true of anything.
I
It's
feel
just
like
it's
you're
like
describing life. I don't know.
I
At my
know, I
age
know,
now,
and
I've reflected on it. I'm like thinking when they say it's the journey, it really is getting.
so I'm mindful of the fact that it could feel to anybody that's listening to this that, well, this is kind of BSy because it's sort of
Yeah.
obvious, number one, but number two, it feels perhaps a little Hallmark cardy or something like, but it's in my experience the times when I was not going to work and having someone else pay me, it's okay, I got to pay myself. Those are moments that everybody has, doubt, fear, anxiety, trepidation, whatever it is. The Everybody can triumph over that. It's just a matter of being willing to do it. And the it is being willing to fail. The avoidance of failure is what big companies are all about.
Mm-hmm.
It's I can mask it. I'm just sort of going through the motions, doing a little job, but ticking the boxes. There's Failure is sort of, it's not there. Small companies, being a solo, failure is right, right in
Every
front of your
day,
face every day.
you're gonna
and
fail at
and I
something
don't
every day.
right. I don't mean failure in the literal
Right.
sense of like something whatever. It's that sense of, oh, that didn't work or it could have worked better,
Yeah.
and the willingness to experiment. So I've called you the tinkerer. The willingness to sort of just want to learn something by taking it apart. Let's say
Yeah.
those are wonderful traits to have if you want to be a solopreneur.
It really helps to have friends and friends like you with experience and who are willing to share and who are helpful and genuine.
Well,
And knowing how to find those friends is just great. And usually one friend like that will lead to another. And it's
and I
the
think
part of the
that's
journey
true.
is getting out there.
Yeah, I think that's true. I see the posts, for example. I see the posts that you make on LinkedIn, and you're right. Your posts are different than a lot of things I see. It's it
A
they're
barbecue.
they're uniquely Joe. It's sort of like one little word, or I mean one little sentence. Like, what does this mean? That's to be celebrated, I think. The sameness of whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok is not interesting. It's the difference that in the world that is interesting.
Yeah, it's that beauty mark that someone might have on their face that you say, well, that's interesting. And someone else
Yeah.
just might cut off, like, no, that's
Right.
what makes you you, or
Right.
whatever it might be.
You asked me about, can I give some examples of this? So when I was working with an organization that was doing sales coaching, but it was 100% commission kind of thing. It was my own book of business, and anything I won, if you will, was because of my efforts and so forth.
Hmm.
And one of those things
It
led
wasn't
me
from your
to
politics.
right, right. The thing that happened next for me, it was like sort of that one thing leads to another. So I put myself in a place that I was going to do this kind of work, and it was solo, but it was sort of a group of people sort of doing solo things
Yeah,
together. So it was
nice.
like parallel play when you're
That's fun.
kids in the sandbox. But
Yeah.
um, one of the tools that I used to deliver the work that the value of what I was doing was this piece of software, and I said, I like that better than what I'm doing. I'm probably going to still be doing many of the same things I'm doing, but I just called the CEO and I just said, hey, what if we did this together? And I mean,
Uh,
in fairness, it wasn't a cold call. I had already had some relationship with the company, but not him, and so they were like, "Oh my God, yes, it's so." How is that different than anything anybody else? It's just being willing to make the call.
yeah, that's
It's
awesome because there's so many like woulda, shoulda, couldas on those things. And you're
Right.
for me, it's like I'm afraid of how that might be received. Like, oh, who am I to call this person? Or who am I to just bring this thing that might not be what's in their frame
Yeah.
of mind right now? But that's where the good stuff can happen. I mean, the really
I mean,
good
we're
stuff.
we're our own worst enemies, aren't we? We put most of the obstacles in our way ourselves.
They're imaginary.
They are, in my experience, the world rewards that kind of initiative. Okay, now let's call it out. I mean, yes, it's easy for someone to say that. I understand how hard it is to make those calls sometimes. It's hard for me even, even with my experience. I get it. I get it that it's hard. Do it anyway. Do it
And if
anyway.
and if it were to be received not as well, what do you learn from that?
Well, you learn, you ask, how could
Mm,
I have
nice.
said that better? Or how could I have approached this different? Like, I'm not trying to change your mind. Can you give me some input? Because it would really help me. And one of the things that's human, sort of a trait that humans share, is that they kind of want to help someone who's asking for help.
Right.
And so the worst thing you can do is leave or be told they're not going to buy from you, or stop working with a company and not have that post working with them or post sale discussion around what could have gone better. Even if you win, it's why and what can we do to improve, even though, yes, I mean, having those, asking for that kind of input is, as a solo, you've got to do, because that's
Definitely.
the only way to actually learn. You can say, okay, that didn't go well. I imagine that it did. Well, you're just assuming stuff. You're making stuff out of you. You've got to ask. You've got to ask about why it didn't work.
And if it goes really well, would you ask the same question? What would you do
Uh,
differently?
I would, maybe not right then,
Not right then, right? Might
but
blow the sale. Wait, don't give me a doubt, or
well, I mean, it's
maybe not the thing to be thinking
yeah.
about right now.
Most solopreneurs, most solos that you're going to be speaking in your community are doing something that's a business. It's a business
Yes.
concern. So they're selling. So you don't always ask for that input necessarily immediately,
Okay.
but it's got to be, and sometimes it's better to have someone else ask for you. But if you're a solo, I guess it's going to have to be you.
Well, a lot of people look for the word of mouth in the solo. Like they might not have learned to sell yet. And any advice for people on word of mouth? Because I know people say, "Hey, can you recommend me?" But aren't there those opportunities sometimes that present where someone says, "You're really good at this," but people might not feel comfortable saying, "Hey, would you mind letting the world know?" How do you go about those types of things? You've been doing this
That
for a long time.
that's a great question. I think it comes down to the construction of the question. It's the or the request, the ask, if you will. You know, hey, can you recommend me? Is probably not the most most useful way of It's sort of like, do you have budget? You got to know whether someone has budget, but you never ask that question. You never ask the question in that way. So asking for referrals is, uh, I think, one of those things that is pretty nuanced. That said, I would, if someone volunteered what you said in your example, hey, you're pretty good at this. And he says, well, thank you. Tell me why you said that. Or tell me more about what leads you to that conclusion. And then you're in a potentially in a conversation, and you could say, well, as you know, I am always looking for introductions to other folks. Can you think of anyone to whom you might want to introduce me?
Right. Sounds like a natural, obvious thing. You're good at this. Can I help anyone else who might
Yeah.
need someone good at this? But it's a hard thing to do sometimes when you're solo and new at it because it's
So yeah, I think the putting on your LinkedIn profile open to referrals is not the way to do it, because
correct.
or something like that,
It's
or
like
wearing it.
eating at the restaurant that says help wanted.
Right,
It's like, I don't know if I
exactly.
want to go to that
Right,
place.
right. Dishwasher wanted. Oh boy.
Oh yeah, those
Uh,
bites are going to be great.
I would want to couch it, not, beat around the bush sort of randomly, but to ask people, can you, and maybe going back to what my earlier point, as part of your learning about, suppose you presented something to someone and it was appropriate for you to present it to them, and they said, no, and you could have a conversation that might actually lead to a referral,
Mhm.
because if you wanted, you can diagnose the decision in a way that is going to be, get people to lean into it by saying, okay, I don't think I would ask, we're not wordsmithing this, but you need to find out, is it a timing thing, or is it, now hopefully it's not, well, they really don't like you.
Right, that was the thing you said earlier. They're going to buy because they
But
like you. And if
yeah,
they just don't
but
like you.
I think if you ask, say, are you open to helping me understand what I could have done better? And if they're leaning into that a little bit, you might even be able to ask someone who's not going to do business with you now to say, do you know anybody who might want to do business along the in terms of the context we're talking about now? I think it's all about maintaining a conversation with them that allows them to feel like you actually want to hear and won't be offended by anything you do hear,
Yeah.
and
And I think
won't be overly, excited about things that you do hear. It's just you generally want to understand. And when people feel like they're talking to someone that they like, I mean, not like, but they want to talk to because they're getting something of value from it, they're going to want to help you. So asking for referrals is, again, I think it's word choice is important. The word referral is probably not the right
right,
word.
because it's about you. Like who
Yeah,
can you bring to me? Like
it's
who else can I
right,
help? Or is
right.
anyone else do you
And,
know that
so
is if
let's
you're
go
not
with
looking for this, who might be looking to be helped this way?
Joe. You hit the nail on the head. It's then it becomes more about them and the problems that they're experiencing in their world. And so, well, that was a perfect way of putting it in my view. So
Yeah.
far better than I came up with. So good
Well,
on you.
yeah, one
So
one out
it's
of a
like,
hundred is
right,
not bad.
right. Joe, you spend time talking with other people in your world. Where else have you seen that this is something that is worth solving? People make, business decisions. We've talked about this emotionally, and they have to feel like they really want to make a change. They change from doing something that is ineffective, or dealing with a vendor they feel is not working for, making a change is a hard decision typically for businesses, and therefore it's kind of easier for them to not make a decision. But if they don't make a decision, it's because you weren't compelling it. You didn't create the sort of, if you will, the conditions for combustion of them
Right. I
making
think
making that decision.
old sales word was persuasion often, but then you think,
Yeah,
no, is it persuasion or is it just finding
it's
understanding? Are you understanding the other person? Do they understand you? And if you both understand each other and you can't help each other, then that's great. You understood each other and you can move on. But sometimes you try to
pers-
persuade, you might not be able to get an understanding. The persuasion, you serving yourself might get in the way too much of that, I think sometimes.
absolutely, the persuasion is the person that you're speaking to persuading themselves based on the conversation you're having, as opposed to you persuading them because of, I don't know, being on transmit more than they are, or talking more, or that concept of being persuasive is that I'm going to arm wrestle someone into agreeing with me. That's never the right path. So for a solo, persuasion is about helping them persuade themselves, not you persuading them.
A lot of solos can struggle because there's the managing the equilibrium of selling time versus servicing time. And when they might not have a lot of clients, they lose one of those clients, they could go into a panic mode and then get to be exert their will a little bit too much. And those are one of those things you gotta be. You got to be careful of when you're a solo is to not do that, but also to be willing to ask for help. It actually doesn't hurt to say, I'm a little slow right now. Like you said, people do want to help. If you're like, hey, I'm just trying to get this off the ground. What do you think? Is it worth doing? Someone might say, no, it's not. Or they might say, this is a great thing. And I
Yeah,
want to help you get it off the ground.
I think that's true. I really, and I personally experienced that people want to help you, and some people are easier to root for than others. I get it, but that's your conversation and your relationship building with people has to lead to that they feel that way. And so back to the referral thing for a minute, something just popped into my mind based on what you were saying, is it might be the best thing to do to bring that kind of stuff up early. So one of the things that's really important to a guy like me is if we work together and successfully, is that being able to move on to the next project is it would be great if you could help me with that at the end of the project. So maybe the best way to ask for the referral is to say, if this works out, I'm going to want a referral. And so that
Right.
you set the content and the expectation is that that's going to be something you talk about at the end of something. So if you're a solo, you're probably doing project work for
Mm-hmm.
the most part.
Yep.
You're servicing one customer at a time. I don't care whether you're making a kitchen set of kitchen cabinets,
Yep.
or you're doing what you do, or you're working in a sales coaching mode like I have done. There's going to be an end. You're not doing a job that sort of doesn't have an end by
Right.
definition. It's
Not
it's
forever.
right. It's project work. So getting that or setting that expectation early on might be the best way to make it easier to have that conversation when it does end.
And project
I don't,
work, I want someone who wants to referral do project work. That means they're going to try their best to do a damn good job and be somebody that I did not regret spending my money with, and someone I would tell everyone was awesome. Like that's what I say about you. Adam is like the guy for marketing and sales. And I think, one of the interesting thing is with you, and I know you've helped a lot of people with sales and you can do both. I always look at you as the marketing genius. And I wanted to ask you, what do you like more, or do you even see a difference at times? I think you do. I think we've said
uh,
this before, but where are you at now on it? Like marketing, sales, difference, no
okay,
difference.
so
Where do you love to be in that whole sandbox?
that's a great question. It could be another podcast episode, but I
Probably
will
could
say
be.
this. My personal philosophy is the two words are obviously different. They're different words, and they certainly have different meanings to people, but they're really much more connected than I think they're more similar than they are dissimilar in my view. So my role right now, I'm the chief revenue officer of a small startup software company that's based in Israel, actually, and we're doing. It doesn't matter what we're doing. Um, so in that role, I have to think about sales, marketing, and strategies of both constantly. I have to think about is is our how do we refine our message? How do we once refined, how do we get it out? How do I, what how are we going to go to market? Are we going to so it's I'm doing all that. And it's because truly they are really one and the same, honestly. It's they're the specialization, if you will, of those words or has gotten to a place where it feels like they're rigidly defined, but I view them as far more interchangeable, honestly. And so maybe the best way to say is the two sides of the same coin. There are certainly activities that are more marketing like and activities that are more sales like, but at the end of the day, a solo, they have to be the same because all you're doing
Mm,
is trying to create and keep customers to the degree you can and create new ones. So you tell me, solo guy, are you, is it, does it matter? Frankly, does it matter whether
I
you're,
see them blending one to the other.
yeah,
And I
I
think
mean,
that whole point about authenticity and being unique and being yourself, that can be, that's the one to brand, show people, and that is your brand.
right,
And even in a larger company, your people are your brand. If you think of something like HubSpot, Dharmesh Shah, to a large extent, is HubSpot's brand for me and for a lot of people I know. He's out there talking about it a lot. And you're kind of buying people or the different people at HubSpot. When I was in the partner program, I was buying Pete Caputa and what he had to offer. When you're
right,
dealing with the academy, it was BL and Mark Killens, those guys that were there. They were people when they put their heart into their work, you see it, and that becomes the brand, that becomes the sale,
right.
I think. And you have to
Yeah,
sell something you believe in.
absolutely. So because you're a solo, it doesn't matter. The difference between those two things doesn't matter.
No.
There are times when you will do things that some other people would define more as marketing and more as sales. It's all about creating a customer and creating the conditions for a customer to happen. But you asked me, which do I enjoy more? Because of that mindset I have, I don't make a distinction really between the activities that I'm doing. So yesterday, I had a sales call at the end of the day, or I should say, it was later in the day. Then I was working on our website because we had hired a guy to help us refine our thinking around some copy that we want to have on the website. And so then I got the copy back and I sort of read it and I rewrote some things to sort of tease out a lot of the concepts that he surfaced that were sort of organically new, as well as some of the rework. And so that's, someone would say, well, that's more of a marketing thing because it's
Mm-hmm.
about messaging and so forth. But every time a message is received by someone, whether it's by the web or you speaking it to them, is it marketing? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to. So I enjoy both those things, and so I was spending time. We used so our site's powered by WordPress and a particular theme, and I was learning the theme, and it's so those are, someone would say those are marketing agency kind of activities.
Yeah.
And it's certainly at a smaller company or even as a solo, it's really important to the continuing functioning of your business.
Yeah.
So
Eh,
it's but I enjoy them equally. And like I said, I feel that people do make more, they're making more out of it than it should be, and create
yes.
more of a divide, if you will, or a contention between
Yes.
sort of uh,
Yeah.
marketing exists so
You and I
salespeople
talk
have
about that.
something to blame,
Right.
and
Yeah, that's right.
and vice versa. It shouldn't be that way.
No.
I mean, it's easy to say, but it's hard to achieve. And well, here's one way that I know that organizations, and as a solo, this is not pertinent necessarily, but this whole concept of commissions, frankly, on sales is far more divisive than it is a bonding thing.
Yeah.
So unless someone comes to me and says they will work on 100% commission, I don't think anyone should get. I don't think salespeople should get commission. There's nothing
I
wrong
know
with
that.
very. There's
You and
nothing
I
wrong with.
worked on that. I don't know
I
if you
know.
remember, but it was the points program and it was great.
Absolutely
It was one of the best things ever. And it motivated people who weren't normally in sales and it brought the
right.
team together and they were pumped.
It's because of, you want things that bind people together, not drive them apart, and having, because certainly as a solo, but as a small company or even a big company, everybody's trying to reach the same goal. Their contributions are different, but they should share in the reaching of the
Yes.
goals, or not, together.
And that's a hard thing for solos to do. And you know what? Maybe one day we can have you come talk about that, especially with the solos, because the dream is to have the solo community work together a little bit better. And
I
not to share leads as a Rotary, but to kind of come together on things, clean, work project by project, know who to work with, and figure that out without it becoming crappy, without it becoming,
yeah. Uh,
without the best of the human element, not the worst, not the
right.
envy, and not like, how do you bring these cats, right? These
Yeah.
independent souls together to work on something. I believe it can be done. That is a tinkering project, but I would love to have you come in
So
and figure bits of that out, because I know you can
I'm
too.
I'm there. I'm there. I think it would be wonderful to have an opportunity to, in a group setting,
Yes.
to talk about these things, because
Right.
it's it's really about trying to figure out how to build and keep momentum, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful to do that in a group setting, and it's yeah, I'm in absolutely.
I'm gonna take you up on that.
Yeah, okay,
That'd be fun.
anytime.
That'd be a lot
Yeah,
of fun. And
and
it'd be fun for people to experience you in that like way, because I enjoyed it. It was amazing working with you that way.
well, so tell us, tell me about how is this going to, do you feel is going to manifest itself? Are you going to literally build a community where people can get together
Yeah, we
and
already have a back end on it ready to
yeah?
go. It's just bring the speakers in, bring people who are listening in,
I
and
would urge you to take the approach that just because we might have a speaker, it's everyone that's going to be at the
yeah,
event is the speaker. There
yeah,
may
that's
be a
right.
speaker, but it's not being spoken to. It's we are having a conversation, and the mindset is that everyone in the room is as valuable a speaker as the people who might actually be called the speaker.
I'm gonna have to bring you to that one.
Okay,
Got to
I'm
get
down.
everybody in and
I'll
active.
drive
If
to
there's somebody to
Delaware,
do it,
man.
you could do it.
I'll
All
get in
right.
my damn car and drive to
I like
Delaware.
coming up there too. I had some good
Okay,
Indian food with you that one day. So you hungry? I said, I kind
yeah,
of.
sure
you,
is.
you
Got
cooked
Indian
up a
food.
good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, come down here. We'll do something. That'd be awesome.
So I have so our we have a reseller in the DC area,
Nice.
and I do have to go down there soon. So I
Oh
am
wow.
considering driving. So I
Let me
may
know the date.
just stop by.
We'll have fun. It'll be it'll
Yeah.
be a good time.
But
Man,
yeah. So listen, I know we can't we could go on forever,
we sure
but
could. Let's make
yeah,
that another one.
but I will always help you, Joe. You know that.
Yeah, well, same here, brother. It is always a pleasure. And you got me into this video mess.
Yeah.
You're the
Okay.
first video guy around. And yeah, as awkward as it could feel on video, I still enjoy it. And
I
it's
know.
been a
Yeah, we're all like we're our worst critics, right? Oh my
yeah.
God, I look so old, or I look so this, or I look so
Just don't
that.
watch it.
So yeah, it's right. Well, so
I have fun doing them though. They're a lot of
yeah.
fun to get to know
So
people and talk to.
you know what I'm doing now, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's a good
Yeah.
thing. I mean, you're helping, with a very serious
So
issue, things that
uh,
parents worry about
the
every day.
the kinds of people that we want to have conversations with are at schools or at retail stores that experience either the feeling that they're at risk or actual risk of robbery and so forth. So if you feel that this is a subject that other people want to talk about, let them know that
Yeah.
I'm interested in talking to them.
Well, I
That's
mean,
me asking you for a referral.
yeah, well, certainly will be, because every and I will. I'd love to introduce you to the school district here, for that, because with the news these days and everything that goes on, every time you see something, the thought of a
I know.
dangerous activity like that
Yeah.
crosses your mind as a parent every single time.
Yep.
And I think
So
it's good work you're doing. As always, you're always helping in the right way, but
thanks, man.
appreciate that,
All right.
brother.
Listen, we'll put a pin in it. This is sort of as they say, see you later, not goodbye, right?
That's right. All right, Adam. Thanks for
Thanks,
finally
man.
doing this. This has been a pleasure. So
Right. I hope this is something you can edit into something that sounds like
it
a
will be amazing. The edit will we're gonna use AI. We're gonna be
okay.
buff. We're gonna be like on the beach, We're gonna,
Oh, backgrounds, hair. I just need hair.
yeah, we're gonna look amazing.
All right, my friend.
All right.
As always, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Thanks.
Okay.
Peace, man.
All right. See you. All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Bye.